The prescription bottles on the pharmacy counter at Walgreens on Broad Street made a small plastic sound when the woman pushed them back toward the register. 3 of them. Her hands were shaking. Not from cold, though the December air through the automatic doors was sharp enough to feel. She had a debit card in one hand and a child's winter coat draped over her other arm, tags still on, the kind of coat you buy before you know what the month will cost you. "I'm sorry," she said to the pharmacist. "Can I? Just the one, just the amoxicillin." Daniel Harp was standing back in line with a single item, Lily's eardrops, a prescription that had been waiting since Tuesday. He was still in his work clothes, paint on the knuckles of his right hand from a baseboard job he'd finished at 4, his boots leaving faint white marks on the pharmacy floor. He had $34 in his wallet and $178 in checking, and a water heater that had been making a sound for the past 2 weeks that he was not ready to think about. He stepped forward and set his card on the counter before he decided to. "Ring them all. I've got it." The woman turned. She was about his age, early 40s, dark circles under steady eyes. "I can't let you do that." "It's done," he said. And then, because she was still looking at him, "I have a kid too, the coat's a good one." He paid $67.11 left. He did not look at the receipt. He was outside and unlocking his truck when he heard her behind him. "I'll pay you back. I mean it. I don't have a way to right now." "Don't worry about it," he said. "It's cold. Go take care of your kid." He drove the 14 minutes to the Sitters, picked up Lily, buckled her into the booster seat she had recently decided was embarrassing even though she was 6.5. The law was the law. She told him about a spider she had found in the classroom and the way her teacher, Mrs. Gorman, had screamed, which Lily found very funny and recounted in detail, twice. He listened. He did not think about the $67 or the water heater. He thought about them later, after dinner, after Lily was in bed standing at the kitchen sink in the house on Clover Mill Road that had been his mother's and was now his, and needed more than he could currently give it. He stood there for a while. Then he dried his hands and sat down at the table and looked at the budget spreadsheet he updated every Sunday and had not been able to close without a headache for 3 months. He made $48,000 a year painting houses. He was good at it. He had been doing it since he was 19 and had never once not shown up, and had a reputation in Millbury that meant he was never without work, but which also meant he was never more than work. His ex-wife, Carla, had a new job in Columbus and called Lily every Thursday and visited 4 times a year and was not a bad person. She was just not there. It was just him and Lily and Clover Mill Road and the water heater. He closed the laptop and turned off the kitchen light. Sylvie Tran had not slept past 5 in the morning in 3 years. It was not anxiety exactly, though there had been plenty of that. It was more that the hours between 5 and 7 were the only hours that belonged entirely to her, before the calls started and the calendar filled, and the part of her that was CEO of Tran Medical Consulting had to be fully assembled and ready. She made coffee in the dark and stood at the window of the house on Alderton Lane and watched the streetlight on the corner do nothing in particular. Her mother had been sick in the fall. Not critically, but enough that Sylvie had driven the 4 hours to Springfield 4 times in 7 weeks, which meant 4 times her assistant Jonas had rearranged a week around a family emergency Sylvie had not announced because she did not announce things. Her mother was better now. The 4 trips had cost Sylvie something she did not yet have a name for. The company was 12 years old and had 15 full-time employees and 3 major contracts with regional hospital systems to restructure billing compliance infrastructure. It was by any external measure a success. The internal measure, which was the only one Sylvie trusted, said, "There is a gap between what this company is and what it is supposed to be. And the gap is getting wider, and you are the only one who knows it, and you have not told anyone, because telling anyone would require knowing, and you have not let yourself know." The gap had a name, actually. Its name was the Kendrick contract. Kendrick Regional Medical Center, 240 beds, southeastern Ohio. Sylvie had signed them 18 months ago. The compliance restructuring had gone well. The billing audit had gone well. The implementation had gone well enough that Kendrick's CFO, a meticulous man named Harold Voss, an actual paper letter, which almost no one sent anymore, thanking her personally, and saying that the work had saved them somewhere between $800,000 and $1.1 million in the first fiscal year. What Harold Voss did not know and what Sylvie had known for 4 months was that one element of the billing code reclassification Tran Medical had recommended was built on a CMS guidance interpretation that a legal update in March had quietly invalidated. Not fraudulently, not knowingly, but incorrectly. If Kendrick were audited, and Kendrick was the kind of hospital that got audited, rural, underfunded, perpetually under a magnifying glass, they would have a problem. And the problem would have Tran Medical's signature on it. Sylvie had drafted the disclosure letter 11 times. She had sent it 0 times. She stood at the window and finished her coffee. Then she got dressed and drove to the office, where she sat in the dark for 40 minutes before Jonas arrived and the day began. The second time Daniel saw her was in the Walgreens parking. 6 weeks after December, she was loading bags into a Subaru that had a broken rear taillight, and she recognized him before he recognized her. "The pharmacy," she said. "You paid for my prescriptions." He remembered. "How's your kid?" "Better, she's good. She had a paper bag in each arm and was managing them badly. I've been carrying around $67 cash since January. I didn't know how to find you." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to." She set one bag on the trunk and took out an envelope. "I do though, it mattered. You have no idea how much it mattered that night." He took the envelope. He didn't open it. "I'm Daniel Harp." "Sylvie Tran." She shook his hand with the one that wasn't holding a bag. "Do you live in Millbury?" "Born and raised you." 4 years. I have a company here consulting." She picked up the bag again. "Thank you again, still." She drove away. He got in his truck and sat for a moment. Then he opened the envelope. Inside was $67 in cash folded neatly in a business card. On the back of the card, in small, precise handwriting, "If you ever need anything, I mean it." He put the card in the glove compartment, drove to the hardware store, and bought 2 gallons of primer. The water heater failed on a Thursday in February. Not the dramatic kind of failure, no flood, just a slow surrender, lukewarm, then cool, then cold. He got Lily bathed with water he heated on the stove and put her to bed, and then sat at the kitchen table and looked up water heater installation on his phone for 20 minutes before he let himself calculate what he already knew. A new unit was $900, minimum, plus installation. He had 340s in checking. He had a job starting Monday, interior repaint on a Victorian on Maple, but the deposit wouldn't clear until Wednesday. He was not going to ask anyone. He had not asked anyone for anything since his mother's funeral, when the pastor had asked if he needed help with the reception, and he had said no, and then spent 4 hours making sandwiches alone in the church kitchen, and cried twice and told no one about either. He opened the glove compartment at 9 that night for a pen and saw the business card. He held it for a while. Then he put it back. He called his brother Ray in Cincinnati instead, who did not have $900 but who talked him through the job listings on Angie's List for 40 minutes and helped him find an installer who could do it for $650 with a payment plan. And Daniel spent the next week showering at the YMCA on Central at 6 in the morning, before Lily woke up and telling her the hot water was being fixed by the water guys, and she accepted this completely because she was 6 and trusted him about things like water. The business card stayed in the glove compartment. He thought about it more than he meant to. Sylvie sent the disclosure letter in March. Not draft 12, not the careful hedged version that her attorney Marcus had reviewed and called defensible. The real one, the one that said, "We made an error. Here is the error. Here is the corrected methodology. Here is what we recommend you do next. We will support the correction at no additional cost to you." Harold Voss called her the same afternoon, 4 hours after she'd sent it. She had been expecting anger, or the careful managed tone of a man about to involve lawyers. "Mrs. Tran," he said, "I've been in healthcare administration for 31 years. Nobody does this." "We should have caught it sooner," she said. "I'm sorry we didn't." "I'm not calling to be angry," he said. "I want you to understand that. I'm calling because I want you to know that I read this letter out loud to my CFO team and 2 of them didn't believe you'd sent it voluntarily." A pause. "You understand what this cost you?" She did understand. 3 of her other clients had compliance structures with similar exposure. If she corrected Kendrick, she would have to correct all of them. The cost in billable hours and client confidence, and the 18 months she would spend rebuilding what she had spent 12 years constructing, was not abstract to her. "I understand," she said. "All right," he said, and then, after a moment, "I'm going to recommend you to every administrator I know. For the rest of my career, I want you to know that too." She thanked him and hung up and sat very still for about a minute. Then she called Jonas in and told him to pull the compliance files for the other 3 clients. He asked if everything was okay. She said yes. She said, "We have some work to do." She drove home at 7:30 and made dinner for 1 and ate it standing at the counter and did not think about the cost, because she had thought about it for 4 months and the thinking had not been useful, and the letter had. She thought about the man at the pharmacy instead, the way he had put his card down before he'd decided to. She had recognized that motion. She had stood in front of the Kendrick letter for 4 months knowing it needed to be sent, and the moment she had finally sent it, it had felt like exactly that. Something done before she was ready, which turned out to be the only way it was ever going to get done. He called the number on the card in April. He did not plan it. He had spent 6 weeks not planning it. He was sitting in his truck outside a job on Prescott Street, eating a sandwich at noon, when he called the number. She picked up on the second ring. "This is Daniel Harp," he said, "from the pharmacy." "I know who you are," she said, not unkind. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, yes." He looked out the windshield at the dormant front lawn of the house he was about to repaint. "I was wondering if your offer was real." A small pause. "Which part?" "The if you ever need anything part." "Yes," she said. "What do you need?" He told her. Not the water heater, that was handled. But a job had fallen through, a client who had decided not to sell his house after all, which meant a $4,000 job that Daniel had budgeted for had become nothing, and he was 3 weeks out from a gap he did not know how to close. He did not usually tell people things like this. He heard himself telling her and felt the particular kind of exposure that came from saying a true thing to someone who had not asked. She did not fill the silence with reassurance. She said, "What are you doing this Saturday?" He said, "Painting a garage." She said, "After that?" He said he didn't know. She said, "My office. 2, I have something I want to ask you about." The Tran Medical Consulting office on Route 9 looked like a converted Victorian that someone had made reluctantly modern inside. Original crown molding, new track lighting, a reception desk that was too minimalist for the room. Sylvie's office was at the back. She had a desk that was too large for the space and 3 plants she kept alive with the focused attention she gave to things she did not want to lose. Daniel came in with paint on his right wrist that he had not been able to get entirely off. He sat in the chair across from her. She had her laptop closed, which he noticed, and her phone face down, which he also noticed. "I have a building," she said, "in Millbury, on Prescott, a 3-story. I bought it 2 years ago and I've been meaning to get it done and I haven't gotten it done. Exterior needs stripping and repainting, 2 units inside need full refresh, and there's a 3rd-floor room that's just been storage and needs to be made livable." She slid a folder across the desk. "I got 1 quote last fall. I want a second." He opened the folder. The quote was from a company out of Worcester. He looked at the numbers, looked at the description of work, looked at the numbers again. He quoted her back $800 less, which was what it was worth, and told her why, item by item, without hurrying. She listened the way she listened to things that mattered completely. No interruptions, no typing. "When can you start?" she said. 2 weeks. I have a job finishing up on the 10th. 2 weeks is fine. She looked at him for a moment. "I want to ask you something and you can tell me it's not my business." "Okay. You called me because you needed help, but you didn't call me in February." He looked at her. "How do you know about February?" "I don't. I'm guessing. You don't seem like someone who asks for help in February." She picked up her coffee cup, looked at it, set it back down. "Neither do I. I just wondered what changed." He thought about it. "I figured you meant it," he said, "when you said it." She nodded. That seemed to be enough. He worked the Prescott building through May and into June. Scaffolding, 4 layers of old paint stripped back to wood that turned out to be in better shape than anyone expected. A gray-blue exterior color that Sylvie had chosen from 3 samples he'd brought, and that looked, when it was done, like the house had always been that color and no other. The inside units he and his subcontractor Philip finished in 3 weeks. The 3rd-floor room he did alone. He brought Lily on 2 Saturdays when school was out, put her in the corner of the 2nd-floor unit with a coloring book and a lunchbox, and told her not to touch the rollers. She touched a roller on the first Saturday and not the second. He told Sylvie about it on the second Saturday when Sylvie stopped by the building at noon with sandwiches, and they sat on the front stoop and Lily explained to Sylvie, at length, what had happened with the roller and why it had been an accident. Sylvie listened to all of it. She did not look at her phone. "Do you like painting?" she asked Lily. Lily considered this seriously. "I like the brushes better than the rollers," she said. "Rollers are too easy." Sylvie looked at Daniel over Lily's head. He looked at the street. In June, Harold Voss sent a formal referral letter to the administrator of St. Anne's Regional Medical Center, a 300-bed hospital in eastern Ohio that had been looking for a compliance consultant for 18 months. The letter described Tran Medical's work at Kendrick and, in 2 carefully worded sentences, described the moment Sylvie had sent the unsolicited disclosure letter and what it had meant to him. The St. Anne's contract was 3 times the size of the Kendrick contract. Sylvie did not hear about the referral letter until the day before the St. Anne's call. She found out because Jonas forwarded her the email chain, and she read it standing in the parking lot of a grocery store with the engine running, and then she sat in the car for 10 minutes without getting out. She had spent 18 months afraid of the Kendrick letter. The cost of it, which had been real, was less than the cost of not sending it, which had been 4 months of knowing a thing she refused to know. She thought about that ratio for a while. Then she went in and bought groceries and made dinner and sat with it quietly, the way she had learned to sit with things that did not need to be said out loud. The Prescott building was done by the 3rd week of June. Sylvie walked through it with Daniel on a Thursday evening, room by room, the way you walk through something you have been waiting to see finished. She was quiet in the 3rd-floor room. He had left the original wide plank floors, sanded and sealed, and added nothing except good light and fresh white walls. The room had 3 windows. In the evening, the light through the west window was particular. "This is good," she said. Not about the room. He understood she meant the whole thing. "It held up," he said. "The bones were good. It just needed the surface cleared." She looked at him. He looked at the window. They walked downstairs. On the front stoop, he gave her the final invoice and a copy of the warranty documents for the exterior coat. She took them without looking at them. "I want to refer you," she said. "I work with hospital facilities directors and building administrators. Some of them have properties. I want to give them your name." He had not been expecting that. "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to." She was looking at him in a way that was very direct and very calm. "You did good work. Good work should move." He nodded. She said, "Lily said rollers are too easy." She did. She's not wrong. She looked down the street the way you look when you are not quite done with a moment but not sure what else belongs in it. "I made a mistake once. A professional one. Took me 4 months to fix it. Someone did something before they were ready in a parking lot, and it reminded me that waiting for ready is usually just waiting." She paused. "I'm telling you that for a reason." He stood very still on the front stoop, the invoice copies in his hand, the June light flattening against the gray-blue exterior behind him. "Okay," he said. She said, "There's a dinner, Millbury Chamber. Last Friday of July. I usually go alone." She was not looking away. "I'm not asking for the right reason or the wrong reason. I'm just asking." He thought about February, when he had sat at the kitchen table and looked at the business card and put it back in the glove compartment. He thought about April, when he had called, anyway. He thought about the way Lily had explained the roller to Sylvie for 6 minutes, and Sylvie had not looked at her phone once. "What time?" he said. 7, she said. "I'll drive." She walked to her car. He stood there for a moment with the invoice copies. The gray-blue exterior held its color in the evening light. He had known it would. Good paint, applied right over wood that was sound to begin with. It lasted. That was the thing about surfaces. They looked like the end of the work. They were actually just what you saw. The last Friday of July, Lily was with her grandmother in Millbury. Daniel's mother's sister, who was called Nana Pat and who let Lily watch more television than she was supposed to and always had strawberry ice cream in the freezer. Lily had been asking about Nana Pat's for 2 weeks. She did not ask where her father was going. He ironed a shirt he had not worn since his cousin's wedding and stood in front of the bathroom mirror and thought about Jennifer. Not Jennifer. There was no Jennifer. There was Carla, but Carla was beside the point now. He thought about the version of himself that had stood in this bathroom 4 years ago, learning to be alone in a way that did not destroy things. He thought about that man with a kind of careful respect, the way you think about someone who did hard work you no longer have to do. He turned off the bathroom light and went outside. The Range Rover, not a Range Rover, a blue Subaru, the taillight finally fixed, pulled up at 6:45. He was already on the porch. She was in a dark green dress and looked like someone who had thought about what she was wearing without appearing to have thought about it. "You're early," she said through the window. "So are you," he said. She smiled. He got in. They were 3 blocks away before either of them said anything, and what Lily had said the first Saturday on the stoop came back to him. "I like the brushes better than the rollers." "Rollers are too easy," he did not say it out loud. But the shape of it was there, between them in the car, on the way to a dinner they both knew was not really about the dinner. In the particular silence of two people who had each spent a long time being careful and were beginning, slowly, to be something else. She drove. He watched Millbury go past in the July evening. Neither of them was in a hurry. Neither of them had forgotten that being in a hurry was how you missed the thing you were actually headed toward. "I keep thinking about the moment Daniel put his card on that pharmacy counter. He didn't think it through. He didn't calculate whether he could afford it. He just did it, and then walked out before the woman could even say thank you. That's the part that stays with me. Not the grand gesture, the walking away. There's something I've come to believe, not from a book or a sermon, but from watching the way real things unfold over time. The choices that change your life rarely feel like choices in the moment. They feel like reflexes, like something your character does when your brain isn't fast enough to talk you out of it. Daniel had $111 left after that night. He had a water heater about to die and a 6-year-old who needed breakfast and a budget spreadsheet that already didn't add up. And still, something in him moved before he could stop it. That's what I'd call decency in its truest form. Not the kind you perform when people are watching. The kind that shows up when you're tired and stretched thin, and there's genuinely nothing in it for you. Daniel wasn't a wealthy man being generous with his surplus. He was a man with almost nothing giving from what little he had. That's a different thing entirely, and I really believe this. The world responds differently to that kind of giving. Not in a mystical way, in a practical one. Because the people who witness it remember it. Sylvie remembered it for 6 weeks. She carried $67 in cash in her purse because she couldn't let it go unacknowledged. That money became a thread that pulled 2 lives into the same room. And then there's Sylvie. What she did with the Kendrick letter took something different. Not the quick reflex of a warm heart, but the slow, grinding courage of someone who looks at an uncomfortable truth and chooses not to look away. She drafted that letter 12 times. 12. Most people would have stopped at 3 and told themselves the risk was acceptable. She didn't stop because she understood something that takes a long time to learn. That intelligence without integrity is just a sharper tool for building the wrong things. She had built something real at Tran Medical, and she wasn't willing to let a covered-up error hollow it out from the inside. I think about what it costs to be that honest. With a client, with yourself, when the easier path is right there and nobody would necessarily know. Harold Voss said it plainly. Nobody does this. That's how rare it is. And yet Sylvie knew that the version of her company she wanted to lead couldn't be built on a foundation she'd quietly patched and hoped no one examined. So she sent the letter. And then she sent it to 3 more clients, and then St. Anne's called. That's the part people sometimes miss about how things turn around. It's not that good things happen to good people in some automatic, reassuring way. It's that the discipline to do the right hard thing over and over when you're scared, and it costs you. That discipline is itself a kind of strength that compounds. Daniel showed up for every job. He learned his trade until he could look at a quote and tell you line by line where the number was wrong. Sylvie built a company for 12 years on accuracy and accountability. Neither of them was waiting for a lucky break. They were just consistently, stubbornly themselves. What I take from this, more than anything, is that character isn't what you claim to have. It's what you do in the parking lot at night when you're tired and nobody's keeping score. It's what you do with the letter you've been afraid to send. It's whether you show up for a 6-year-old who notices everything, including whether you're actually paying attention. Lily said rollers are too easy. She wasn't wrong. The things worth doing usually require the brush.